Tuesday, and welcome to day 14 of 22 Connect. This has been 2 weeks, crazy. And I'm open to feedback too if anybody's enjoying this or anybody has any suggestions or things that they'd like me to give my experience on. I'm more than welcome to. Today, I want to talk about curating my influences. So when I was younger, I was a bit of an anarchist. In a very conservative agricultural town, I shaved half my head, and I, was the only person who stood up and said that I didn't support Reagan when he was in office in our class. And I used to wear this army green fatigue shirt that said "Travel the country or travel the world, meet go to exotic distant lands, meet exciting, interesting people, and kill them." So anyway, very much, concerned with changing the world at a very young age. And so these influences, I continue to get myself into academic and political and, debate sort of areas where I was looking at these monstrous issues in the world, in our country, and in the world. And it was very overwhelming to me. And I felt very helpless and very hopeless. And as I got older, it profoundly affected my mood, and it also affected my ability, my motivation to do anything, to improve things. I just felt like, what's the difference? It doesn't matter. I'm just, this tiny little person who's very insignificant. So my opinion now is I'm not a victim in my own life. And if I see an issue, I need to figure out my right place. Is that my issue to even address? Or am I already doing my part? Am I doing enough? And that would be taking on too much. So how I curate my influences is this. First of all, the news. I do stay aware of what's going on in the country and in current events and everything, but I'm very careful about where I get my information, and I'm also careful about the amount of information that I take in, because I find that if I get too focused on the news, that it, again, very overwhelming. I start to feel very helpless and very hopeless, and it kind of paralyzes me to where I feel like I can't do enough, and so why do anything? So I try to curate the news. I also try to curate what my influences on the internet. So for social media, I used to in the past argue a lot on the internet, and I find that doesn't serve me anymore. All it does is it takes a lot of my energy, and I tend to find myself very frustrated and angry when I do so. So I have decided that that doesn't serve me. So I try to avoid that, and de-escalate. And for my part also, I try not to actually post a lot of terribly controversial stuff online. I may have one-on-one conversations with safe people where we both allow each other to have our own opinions, but not just like a broader audience where I'm going to end up in a position where I feel either, personally attacked, because that's happened before, or I just get back into that defensive mode, or even offensive, which is not a pretty look for me. It's not a good color for me. So what I focus on, I feed. So again, curating these influences. Does this, lift me up? Does this get me closer to what I feel is my purpose? Or my goals. And it doesn't always have to be like, if you don't love it, get out of your life. I mean, there's some things that I have to do that are not my favorite in the world, but they get me closer to my goals. And so I do make sure that I add those in. I'm very careful about music. It influences me heavily. And if I'm in a sad place and I listen to sad music, I am going to wallow. And if I I have this whole station that's based on like old school Limp Bizkit and Korn and ICP, because I like ICP. I don't care what y'all say. And I like listening to it sometimes because it, a lot of energy and all that, but I have to be careful because it totally gets me back into that place where it's feeding my ego and I get into anger and everything shows on my face. And if I'm listening to it and I'm like walking or exercising or something, you can see everything on my face, and I will get a sneer on my face and I'll start coughing attitude. And I laugh at myself now, but anyway, I'm also careful about people that I have around me. So there are people that I know lift me up and support me, and I do the same for them. Those people, absolutely top tier. I invest in those relationships. There are those people that I know are toxic to me or put me, on edge, and those people I either avoid. I don't need to make a big deal out of it. I can just simply not be available. Or I try to limit my exposure to those people. And when I am in a situation around those people, I try to make sure I have an out. So I always give myself permission to say I go to a social setting or something like that, and there's something going on, somebody's getting really out of control or really angry or something like that. I always give myself the option of just saying, you know what, I've had a wonderful time. I need to go home now, or I'll see you later. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait for us to get together again next time. The biggest thing too is my thoughts. I have to curate my thoughts. Like everybody else, like I spend the most time with myself. I can't even get away from myself. If I'm irritated, it irritates me more that I can't get away from myself. So I have to be careful about what thoughts I let take residence in my head. And sometimes what I'll find myself doing is, if I have an unresolved issue with somebody, I'll find myself kind of chewing on the situation and making up these little movies in my head where, well, I say this and then they say this and then I feel self-righteous and da-da-da-da. And a tool that I've used for that is, one, I want to reason those situations out with somebody else who's safe, because I need to do so. Sometimes I journal so I can figure out, like, what's the root of this issue. And then the other thing that I do too is I meditate. And the practice of meditation itself, it isn't just sitting still and and all that kind of stuff. There are a lot of different ways to meditate. And one of the ways to meditate is simply just, when you see a thought come into your mind, take notice of it. Oh, look, you're making a movie again. Oh, look, it's about that person that you have this unresolved issue with. Okay, I see what you're doing. And just acknowledging that thought and realizing that that's what I'm doing, it's a lot easier for me to let go of that and then move on to whatever else I can actually be productive in, which is, kind of put the focus back on myself. What do I need to be doing for myself? What do I need to do to be of service to other people? As opposed to spending this energy on my little squirrel wheel in my head about this situation or this person or whatever is I'm focusing on. And I don't want to feed that. I want to actually feed the good things in my life, and I want to feed those things that lift me up and that lift the people up around me. And that is exactly how I make a difference in my life, is I make sure that I take good care of myself so that I have reserve to give back to those around me, including my community. And I definitely recommend, one of the things that's very important to me is volunteer work. It's important for me to give back because that makes me feel good. And the act of watching other people who are actually coming together and making a positive difference is the absolute antidote to that overwhelming, helpless, hopeless feeling that there's so many things wrong in the world and nothing is going right, because I don't believe that. And I think if we all just do our part and not try to do all parts, if we just do our part, our responsibility, I think that itself is what cumulatively makes a difference. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I hope you go out and connect with somebody. Take care.